Hello, everybody, and welcome, Michael. Here we all are together again, another week on. We are up to chapter 9 today, moving through this Bhagavad Gita series very nicely, I must say. Gee, we've making some great momentum since we began at the beginning of this year.
Well, that's right, Jackie. Hello to you and hello to all our listeners. Yeah, time sort of flies, and we're nearly, next podcast will be exactly halfway through our 40 podcasts that we'd planned at the start of the year or at the beginning. So, yeah, it's been, very enjoyable sort of exercise, I think, on both your part and mine, and
Yes.
hopefully all our listeners. And it's all, I think, slowly and, different for every person. But I'd imagine as we're building on it chapter by chapter, it's sort of the pieces of like a jigsaw puzzle are coming more and more together. There's constant sort of bits of repetition and follow on from last podcast to this podcast. And that's all, how learning takes place anyway. No one ever hears anything the first time fully. And so we keep sort of referring to it one way or another and adding a little sentence to it, or just to help make it clearer for everyone. And it accumulates. And
Yes.
at the end, I think people will be very, very pleasantly surprised, Jackie, when they get to podcast 40, of how much new knowledge they've acquired and what an impact it's had along their lives, even in this short period of time.
Absolutely. And
All
you're
right.
you're so right. It is that constant reiteration of ideas and thoughts and playing them over, talking about them, learning. I was just commenting to someone the other day, like even though a lot of what we've been discussing is not new material for me, but I was sharing with this other person saying that I feel like the sort of the spirituality in my life has increased substantially in the months of this
Lovely.
year,
Yeah.
because each week we read, we talk, we share in these podcasts, and it just brings everything to life. And we forget as human
Yeah.
beings, don't we? Like we forget things we know, we forget. And so to hear it again, it's like, oh, of course, that sentiment. I mean, some of this is going to be entirely new for people, but some of it's known. We just forget and need the reminding. It's so
Yes.
useful.
Yeah. And the
Well,
reason, again, a good point you're making, and one of the main reasons we forget is it's not that it disappears totally out of our memory, because what you're saying is that as we're having some of these, all of these discussions, it triggers back again the memory that's there. So it doesn't go away. But what happens, Jackie and listeners, is that the reason that we sort of think we've forgotten it is because we've lost focus on it. We've got caught up in worldly affairs. And of course, the more we get caught up, if there's dramas or whatever happening in our life, excitement, whatever, well, then we focus on that. And so who we are, what life's all about, sort of gets pushed into the background. But I keep stressing on students over the years that come to the groups, um, it's the continuity, like these podcasts. Every week we're releasing a new podcast. And so for 40 weeks, for 40 sessions, everyone gets like what's called like going to a petrol station when your tank's empty in your car. Well, in these podcasts, the idea is, and in my classes and so on, is that you top yourself up with sattvic energy. This is fine, beautiful, fine material that we're discussing and people are focusing on and thinking about. So that's your fill up, and that can last you all week until next week when you come along and you get another, So it's exactly the same as going to when your tank's on empty, you've got to go to a service station and fill up.
yes.
So, and the longer we leave it between um, sessions or top ups, well, the more we're likely to start slipping more and more fully back into worldly affairs.
Mm.
So the trick is we're not wanting to avoid listeners being part of the world and our affairs in it, not at all. Um, um, but what we're trying to do is blend the two together. Our spiritual awareness and growth, as well as our daily lives and our link with worldly affairs. So it's
Mm.
the balance, getting the balance. For most people on the planet, my observation is very clear. Most people are missing out on spiritual nourishment. They get plenty of physical nourishment, mental nourishment, emotional nourishment, but not spiritual nourishment. And therein lies the problem for any human being. If anyone's got problems, folks, it's because you're operating from your lower self and not from your higher self. All right.
Well,
So
for all of us here, we're in the right place. What have you
yeah.
got for us this week in terms of material?
Okay, we are exactly in the right place. Couldn't be in a better place. So, yes, you mentioned we're starting chapter 9. So I've got here's an introductory sort of few lines. Continuing on our journey, exploring the teachings of the great Master Krishna, we now begin part 1 of chapter 9, titled The Crown Jewel of the Gita, the Crown Jewel, or it's often referred to as the Royal Secret, or the Secret of Secrets. And I touched on that last week, didn't I, Jackie, just
You
very
did.
briefly, about the paradox of this word secret is that it's readily available to every human being, 8 billion people, never more so in all of humanity's existence. And yet, because of total involvement in worldly affairs, people don't look at it. They don't know it's there. They don't think there's any need to look at it. They don't know where to look for it. If they did, when you first start, it takes a while. And so that's why it's a secret, because every human being is keeping a secret from themselves, keeping this secret from themselves. And I'll elaborate on that in the next few lines. So placed in the heart of this great masterpiece, the Bhagavad Gita, is the 9th chapter, wherein lies the supreme secret, what I've just been referring to. The secret being that it remains hidden from most people through their own ignorance. Yeah. Ignorance doesn't mean stupidity or anything like that. It just simply means lack of understanding or lack of knowledge. So because they don't know this knowledge even exists, not just here, but from all the great masters, um, all roads lead to Rome, as the saying goes. So different teachings and different paths, but they'll all end up in the same place, and they'll all, one way or another, be saying the same message. But if anyone doesn't access it, as I say, to me, it's like nearly 99% of the world's population, well, it remains a secret from them. Yeah. No one's keeping it. God's not keeping it a secret from you, everyone. I'm not keeping it a secret. As you can see, I come here every week and I want to share it. But we keep it a secret from ourselves. But all of us, Jackie, and the listeners, we don't come under that category. We've realised one way or another, to some extent or other, that there is this secret, and it appeals to us. As little as we might know about it, or the more we know about it, it just appeals to us more. But we're determined then to find out what this secret is. And it's not like opening a Christmas present, when you gave me these headphones and I opened it up and I saw it was headphones. It's a bigger secret and a deeper secret, and it takes a bit more work for an individual, or a fair bit of work, obviously, for an individual to discover fully the secret. But you can keep sort of unwrapping and get a clearer picture, and keep unwrapping more and get a clearer picture. And that's the way it all works. Is that okay, Jackie?
I'm fairly certain you've got everyone quite captivated at this point.
Oh,
Everyone's leaning in, wanting to know more. So please continue.
You want to know a secret, folks?
We
It's
do.
here. Yeah, the rest of this podcast and all the others, and all the ones we've already had. All right, Jackie, that was lovely. So there comes a time in our journey, this is referring to us, seekers of truth, all the listeners, when something opens up in the individual seeker to the universal. So that's what these 6 chapters are about, the universal, whether you call it God or Brahman or the Supreme Being or whatever. So it's saying, comes a time on our journey, or when we start the journey and when we're continuing on it, where something opens up in each individual and it starts allowing the universe to come in. You're inviting it in. And I'll make another little, more references to that as we go along. So the individual seeker something opens up in individual seeker to the universal. And through that opening, the universe comes in and begins to introduce itself. So we start getting little glimpses, Jackie. You've already had a couple of sort of aha moments in these podcasts. That's this connection that I'm referring to here. The individual you opening up and the universe introducing itself, saying, oh, I'll help you understand this a bit more clearly, or, whatever. So it's not a coincidence or a fluke. you have to make yourself worthy and do what's necessary, which we're all doing. So I'll go on to say that these 6 chapters on the divine Brahman, which we are midway through studying, are a wonderful opportunity for us, Jacqui, and listeners, to directly experience our relationship with the Supreme Being. So don't be surprised, anyone, if from this point on, if you haven't had sort of any aha moments or spiritual experiences, you're starting to put yourself in a position where in stillness something could present through the universe. So if it happens, well, that's your reward. You've earned it. But it might puzzle you for a while, and but don't worry about that either, because as more knowledge comes, you'll understand it clearly what it is that's taken place. But you'll certainly understand clearly that it's very beneficial and you've loved it. So there'll be no hesitation on anyone's part. So don't be surprised if some of you have a direct experience or a direct revelation of the nature of the Supreme Being. The changes we've been making in our lives have been gradually transforming us to make us karmically worthy to eventually connect with the ecstatic revelation of the divine. So I've already mentioned that a few times. You make yourself worthy. And that's actually the true meaning of worship. The person reshapes themselves to make them worthy to receive God or the Absolute or this higher entity. As our focus has shifted from an understanding of our small mortal self, so Jacqui and listeners, the first 6 chapters were basically dealing with the lower mortal self, weren't they? Arjuna was asking all the questions and he was confused about what he had to do and all of that. Now, in these next 6 chapters, we've already covered 2 and a couple of more, the emphasis shifts to the higher self. So we've discussed all through the podcast, Jacqui, a lower self and a higher self. Well, most people would be very, very familiar with the lower self aspect. But even though you've heard the words or you like them and come across them one way or another, my observation over many years with groups and people and myself is that we don't really know much about the higher self. And so that's why the focus in these 6 chapters is on the higher self. And it'll be doing both in the teaching. Krishna is going to explain to us, Arjuna, I'm the greatest, I'm the biggest, I'm the most powerful, I'm everything. But he'll also switch it back to us, saying, well, you're made in my image. And you also have all of this greatness and power and everything in you. So we're starting to blend the lower self and the higher self. So as our focus has shifted from an understanding of our small mortal self to now exploring more deeply an understanding of our higher divine self, we begin to yearn for that more strongly. And as a result, our devotion and the love for the Lord quickens. So once the understanding keeps increasing, Jacqui, and we understand we convince ourselves that we're on the right track, we start understanding more and more what this higher self is, that it's really us. We become more enthusiastic. We strive for it, knowing more purposefully. All right. So the pace, many people would probably already recognizing the pace is starting to quicken.
Mm.
Anything you'd like to add there? Or?
I've got a little technical issue I'm just going to intervene with. My headset is telling me the battery is running low, even though I charged it overnight. So all I'm going to flag at this point is if at some point my audio drops out and you can't hear me anymore, you just continue and I'll be the listener nodding and smiling and encouraging. I don't know how long the battery in this is going to last. So let's just roll with it. But if something happens, you'll know why.
All right. And that's for the rest, that'll be for the rest of the session?
That'll be for everyone. If it drops out, my audio is gone.
All right. And the listeners will be hearing and everything?
They'll hear you.
Yeah. All right. Well,
yep.
Try and stay with me, Jacqui.
I will. Let's hope for some divine intervention here.
That's frightened me. I've sort of started to learn to depend on you very heavily.
No, all good, all good.
All good.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
no.
might manage some small tech miracle. I might be able to get the sound on my laptop working, but if it goes out and you don't hear me, you just proceed as normal to our agreed upon time, and
Okay.
I'll just
Yep.
nod supportively.
Well, thanks for warning me, because otherwise I would have been a total wreck. All right, so I'll press on, Jacqui.
Yes.
So this chapter continues Krishna's powerful teachings of how we can achieve freedom from our lives of worry, despair, fear, and guilt, and how we can eventually come to see more clearly the relationship between the Jivatman, that's the Sanskrit word, for the individual soul, which is us, and the relationship with Paramatman, that's the great Atman, Brahman, God, the supreme soul, which is Brahman or God. So we're stressing here the relationship between the two. People think, particularly in religious aspects, that there's two individual entities. There's me and there's God. Well, that's true in one sense, but eventually with teachings like this and understanding like this, we realise that the division is only an illusion of that's how we think it is. And as that illusion disappears through knowledge, we realise that the higher self and my lower self are actually the one thing. We just got to eliminate that and focus on the lower self and identifications with it, which is through desires and likes and dislikes and so on. Start getting rid of those, and then as we eliminate those, our understanding of our higher self increases accordingly. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll continue on then. So in the very first verse of chapter 9, Krishna says to Arjuna, "To you who are so receptive and doubtest not," that's us listeners, Jacqui, we're sort of receptive, aren't we? And we're not. We might still not be sure, but we're not all that doubtful anymore. We got a pretty clear idea what we're doing and why we're doing it. He says, "I will reveal to thee," and this is the important thing, that he's realised Arjuna's made himself worthy to receive his teachings. He says, "To you who are so receptive, you've been listening so carefully and asking questions and showing keen interest, and you doubt us not." So he's already said to him, "You're my greatest friend, my great teacher. I want you desperately to explain it all to me." Well, no student can be any more forthright and show their intent, can they? Well, I can feel all our listeners are saying the same at this stage, Jacqui. You know these magic powers I've got. Yeah. So this so he says, "I will reveal to thee this most profound mysticism. This most mysterious and profound secret, which when practiced shall liberate you from the sorrows of worldly existence." Again, the emphasis on when practiced, not just when learnt and understood, but has to be put into practice. "This is the royal road of ultimate knowledge, of purifying knowledge. It is the purest and the best, righteous and intuitional. It is to practice and a joy to behold. Once you know this secret, you can never lose it." So the more we go down this path, Jacqui and listeners, the more it'll grow in us. The seed and the desire for truth will go stronger, reaches past that critical stage of little plants where they need more attention, watering and shade and whatever it might be. We start to be robust in our own selves and more self-driven and more self-motivated and so on. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So Krishna now continues to elaborate how the self pervades the entire creation. That's capital S, obviously, folks, the self, the higher source. He says that all beings exist in spirit within me and depend on me. Again and again, I animate nature to bring forth this multitude of forms and beings. Under my watchful eye, the laws of nature, often called Dharma, take their course and the wheel of world is set revolving. So in a nutshell there, Jacqui and listeners, he's simply saying everything you know in this creation, everything you know of or half know of or just know it's somehow out there or something, I'm behind it all. I've sort of pressed the button and it's all unfolding according to my divine laws. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I'm just going to interject with one small story that's come up into my mind a few times since we've been discussing all of this, like over several sessions. But it's so simple, but it's that thing of if we all just open ourselves to the miraculous nature of what's already around us, like we can be in a state of total wonderment. Because one of my earliest memories is when I moved out of home. I was 18. I went to live in a share house. I was going to Melbourne Uni. And I went with some
No,
friends.
Mum and I cried
You,
bitterly, Jackie. You know, we were empty nesters. Our
oh,
lovely
now I know
daughter
you're
had left.
joking. Yes, as if I know. Goodness, people will get a little too much insight into our family dynamics in this moment. But I do remember going with some friends to the Vic market. It would have been the first time I'd ever been to such a big, beautiful market. And we all bought a box of fruit and vegetables and different things and took them home ready for the week ahead. And I remember sitting out on the back step in the little terrace courtyard where we lived, and just even peeling a banana. And I was sitting in the sun, peeling a banana and just looking at it with my friend and marveling, just saying, oh my goodness, like who can believe nature packages up something so beautiful and sweet and fresh and tasty, and it's all packaged in a beautiful skin, and you can just like literally peel it and it's perfect. So I did that in one moment, and we'd also bought a coconut, a fresh coconut, and we were out there trying to crack it and slam it on the bricks and do what we could to get it open and drain the coconut juice and, scooping out the flesh and just having an absolute moment of wonderment at how incredible nature was. And I wouldn't have realized this at the time because I didn't understand or even know words like consciousness, and had no comprehension. But at the same time, just being in tune enough with something so naturally beautiful that was provided of this earth for us. And I remember writing Mum a letter of amazement, and I'm sure she recounted to me at one point she thought I was on drugs, because whoever writes about their fruit just being so miraculous and having these moments. But that's kind of stayed with me, and it's in essence what you're talking about, and you've touched on many times. If we actually just avail ourselves and open up in the moment to the incredible beauty of what's around us, you can't help but be touched by the miraculous nature of it.
Yeah, well, once again, you've nailed it, Jackie. And listeners, part of the reason she's so excited about peeling a banana is we were too poor to have fruit and vegetables. So
Oh, nonsense. Don't
that was,
mislead people.
that,
They might
that,
believe you.
oh, I don't think they'll believe me, Jackie.
They might.
Um,
They might not know your jokey
all
humor
right.
enough yet.
She had stacks of bananas. Um, Jackie, you wait till I give the exercise for this week.
Oh,
Yeah?
good. All right. I'll wait
Remember
patiently.
what you've just said, and then remember we don't discuss this or anything. Yeah. The intuition, the connection with the universal mind, it won't surprise you, but it'll be there. I won't say anything
All
other
right.
than that.
You continue
Um,
on.
yeah, but again, a lovely example, and listeners, it will be your activity for this week. So I'll leave it till then. So he goes on to say, Krishna goes on to say to Arjuna that none of these actions in any way that happen in this creation um, bind me, Arjuna. So he says, I bring it all about, I sustain it all, but whatever happens, none of it comes back to me. He says nothing in the creation will go out of whack. The sun will always shine, the tides will always move, all of that. He says, but he's making reference to mortals. Whatever any of you mortals do down there, don't turn around and blame me. I've got nothing to do with it. I've just given you all the equipment you need, and I've given you free will, and I've given you this beautiful planet to roam around on. And he says you can do anything you like. And then he just adds a word of caution to Arjuna and throughout the teaching to all of us that I've got laws in there. And a big one is called the law of karma, the law of cause and effect. So for every thought, word, and deed that we perform, any human being on the planet, there will be a consequence that comes from it, matching what that thought, word, and deed was. So we can use words like, currently the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I've already touched on that a few times with regard karma over the podcasts, and there'll be more of that as the session unfolds. So he says, and he gives a lovely example in his own words as to what he means by that nothing affects him. He brings about the creation, sustains it, and whatever we as humans do, that's our problem, if you like, and our concern, what we've got to sort out, and that's what we're all doing, particularly in these podcasts as we're making fundamental changes in the way we think, speak, and act. So, he gives the example. He says, as birds fly across the sky, leaving no trace, I, like the sky, am ever myself, unaffected by anything in the phenomenal world. I remain outside and unattached. So think of a blue sky and you look up and there's nothing there. And then suddenly a flock of birds, geese or swans or something, fly across. So suddenly there's something there. But as soon as they disappear, there's just that pure blue sky, nothing there. So he's saying, I'm like that. I'm like the sky. Everything that happens in the creation just flies across me or in front of me or over me or whatever, but has no impact. As soon as the birds fly away, I'm just there by myself. Is that clear, Jackie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds good for
Okay.
now.
All right. Moving along nicely. So to conclude this section of his teaching, Krishna continues to stress on Arjuna how the deluded disregard the self, whilst the wise seek the self. Now, in the last couple of podcasts, there's been emphasis, nearly every one of those podcasts, on the deluded and the wise, hasn't there? The two distinct divisions in human society. And simply, for those that might have forgotten, or just a refresher, the deluded means people operating from what I referred to earlier, a state of ignorance. In other words, not the right knowledge or enough knowledge. So they're deluded. They're living in what the great teaching refers to, a world of illusion, the world of Maya. But he says the wise seek the self. So I'll keep stressing to you, Jackie, and the listeners, that what we're doing here is in that second category, the wise. People have said to me over the years as they're going along, old lady, I don't feel all that wise, but she's thinking intellectually and knowing everything, I say, no, you're wise. Very wise to be here, very wise to be joining in these discussions. So any person that turn in the sense of here, we're not talking about accumulated knowledge and stuff like that, Jackie and listeners. We're talking about gaining particular knowledge about who you are. Who am I? What's the purpose of life? If you're doing that, you come under the heading of being a wise person. Oh, right.
And I think worth reiterating, even for people, if they feel absolutely beginnerish with all of this, it's almost like not almost like, it's even just having the focus, giving it priority, like being curious and turning your attention to that. There's wisdom in those actions, even if you look with confusion, lack of understanding, bewilderment. The fact that you prioritize and turn your gaze in one way toward this area of interest and discovery, that's what you're talking about too.
Exactly, and again, beautifully put, very beautifully put. And everyone listening, whatever part of the journey you're on, would relate to that. I can remember clearly, Jackie, 35 years ago when I was a dur, totally deluded, as it's saying here, and I thought I was smart, and I was, and I think quite intelligent and well educated, and I was a teacher, and going about life quite nicely. I was never in jail or before the courts or anything like that. But I had no knowledge of any understanding of this. And so in my early days, like you were when you first started, and all of our listeners, they're baby steps. We're tentative. We don't even know what we're doing. Something's telling us, I want to do this. So the minute the person does that, Jackie, they've woken up, they come under the heading of wise, in my interpretation of what this teaching means. And all you do as you're going along then on your spiritual journey is that wisdom within you grows, just like it does in any field where you start from nothing. And as you practice and as you understand, you get better at it. sport or employment, your employment or running a business or anything it might be. So you put it beautifully, and it's, I'm sure, very encouraging for any people that are early days. I particularly congratulate you people on early days, because you're going, you mightn't realise yet, but you're really going through the hardest phase of all this. Just take the next step and it'll be easier. And the one after that will get easier still. It's the start that's the hardest. And we can identify with that, can't we? How many times do we say, I want to do this? But we think, oh, it's going to take too long. It's going to be take too hard. Oh, I haven't got time now. And we keep putting it off. We keep putting it off. But when we finally get around to it, brave enough and courage enough, and we say, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And we roll up our sleeves and we get it over and done with. And we say, geez, that wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah. and you feel very satisfied that you finally have got it over and done with. Well, that's just a simple example. The spiritual journey's obviously a bit more difficult and takes more time, but the principle is nevertheless exactly the same. All right, Jacqui? So again, you're nailing these little concepts beautifully. I'll congratulate you heartily. So I'll continue on. So he says about the two groups. So I'll refer to what he'll describe the deluded people. It's quite shocking, really. But don't worry, you're not in. None of you are in this group. Wait till I get to the next group, the wise, and then I'll make sure I tell you that, or remind you that you're in that group. But very useful on a serious note, Jacqui, that everyone on this needs to not judge, but just observe everyone around them, even in their family, even at the workplace, even at, whatever. More and more how people are operating, and they'll see clearly that most people fit into the deluded category to some degree or other, in that they're not understanding or interested in this sort of work or this sort of knowledge. So he says about the deluded, he says, they who have no faith in this teaching cannot find me, but they remain lost in their endless pursuit of desires in this perishable world. Yeah, remain lost. That doesn't sound nice, does it? But that's the reality. He says, those foolish persons who disregard me, clad in human form, relate to me as just an ordinary mortal, unaware that in my high nature I'm the Lord God of all, their very soul. So a lot of people say, oh, Jesus, was he alive or wasn't he? And he's only a human being, and Krishna, was only a human being. They're identifying with that mortal aspect, not understanding that they're a manifestation of the higher source. And I'm sure all of our listeners have got a pretty clear idea of what I'm saying there. He makes it very clear to Arjuna and to us that it is their ignorance that makes their lives fraught with pain and sorrow. I've mentioned nearly every podcast. If you ever felt angry, ever felt jealous, ever felt fearful, guilty, whatever it might be, it's because you're operating from your lower self, and you either haven't been aware or you've forgotten and lost focus on your higher nature. He says, in regards to these deluded people, he says, whether they be rajasic by nature, that's one of the two qualities of the three gunas, rajas, and the next one will be tamasic. So he says, whether they be rajasic by nature, with their minds and emotions, ever agitated and never in peace. So a lot of people would recognize their minds are constantly active, the grasshopper mind, the chattering monkey mind, and they're constantly emotional. Crying one day, happy, laughing the next day, up and down, like a roller coaster, like a yo-yo. And then there's the tamasic people, living a lazy, slothful life of ignorance, seeking to only satisfy their bodily needs. And that basically covers 90 or 95% of the world's population, operating predominantly from either one of those, and often a combination of both. And he says in verse 5, he really pulls no punches here. Krishna tells it to Arjuna pretty clearly. He says their hopes are in vain, their actions worthless, their knowledge futile. They are without sense, deceitful, barbarous, and godless. So when I look around the world, I don't see, I see a lot of that. Yeah. In amongst it all, there's a lot of very nice people. I'm not denying that or suggesting that there aren't. But even they, who are very nice people, if they're not seeking the truth, are still in a sense deluded. And they get caught up in those emotional and mental trials and tribulations in their everyday lives. Is that all right, Jacqui?
That's good.
And I'll just add in there a little quote from the Upanishads that sort of came to mind instantly as I was making these notes, talking about in the same vein. And it's a beautiful little passage. It says, "O foolish person, cease to identify with this bundle of flesh, bone, skin, hair, and excrement. Identify instead with the Absolute, and thus attain to everlasting peace." So that's that aspect, Jacqui, of stop identifying with your mortal aspect. That's not who you are. Yeah. And he's talking there just a body. Yeah. Skin, hair, blood, excrement, and so on. Because that's really all it is when you analyze it. And he says, put your focus, start putting your focus on your divine self. Yeah. Focus instead on the absolute and thus attain everlasting peace. Powerful words, very powerful words. But I think everyone would understand it pretty clearly.
Oh, I
Go on,
think so
Jacqui.
too.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, gee, I mean, the contrast for a lot of us, when you look around the modern world and like the obsession with, plastic surgery and just different ways of presenting oneself, and then just thinking of people that you've met in life or people you do know or meet in life that, are just aging gracefully, but they've got that absolute spark in their eye, that spark of life force. Like, what a contrast. Not to be too cliched to say that, people who choose plastic surgery can't be lovely people or also have a spark of consciousness. But, I'm just thinking of the difference sometimes between those, the ones that are caught up in how they present the world that perhaps are not giving or don't give focus to this, and other people that just their inner life force and connection with self and spirituality is so strong, it shines out from every part of their being, no matter how the state of the physical form is.
Yeah. Yeah, again, very relevant, and that touches in on what I was saying there about the Tamasic people. Living a life seeking only to satisfy their bodily needs. So, people, not it's not a criminal offence or anything, but point you're making, and I'm adding to it, is that you're satisfying a need. I want to look, I don't want wrinkles, so I'm going to put Botox in. I want thicker lips, so I'm going to get some Botox. It's a physical thing, isn't it? Tattoos, piercings through your nose, and whatever. These are all, the hairstyles. Um, um, that's just that emphasis on the body, which I quoted from the Upanishads. It's just a body, folks. It's no big deal. You need, like, it's important. You need it. Without a body, you're dead and you can't do anything. But it's what you're describing with things like plastic surgery, and I'm not being any more critical of people who have it than what you are, Jacqui. Let's make sure everyone's clear. We don't want the human rights justice people jumping on us. It's just simply saying that that's where people are putting energy and effort and time. It's important to them, and they want to do it for whatever reason. And I'm not here judging whether you're good, bad, or ugly. I'm just saying, do it while you need to, get it out of your system, hopefully in this lifetime, and then in the next lifetime, you might start to be able to start putting some focus on some higher sort of aspects of living. All right, I'll press on, Jacqui. So I've just written a little note here to remind everyone. Luckily, we don't fit into this category, Jacqui and listeners, what I've just outlined about the deluded being. And don't blame me, I'm just quoting Krishna's words, the great master. This is what he says about people who aren't interested in him and his teachings.
I think we should just clarify again, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just having a giggle to myself thinking, even with the years of study I've done in this area, there's moments we all get lost. So I just want to perhaps reiterate, like, even for people that are starting this journey, there's moments we do feel deluded, and perhaps consciously so, you know, where we might just feel like we don't know where we're going and we don't understand it all. So I'm perhaps just drawing attention to the fact that we can, you know, waver back into this and come back into that. And it's this dance that we've mentioned many times. Even we started with an example of it earlier today, but this just feels important to name in this moment, that even with clarity and a lot of knowledge, we might actually still feel very deluded and lost from time to time.
Yeah, again, very relevant, and you know, that you bring it up. That's part of the journey. It's inevitable. We even have sayings, don't we? Like 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yes.
It happens to everyone, folk. Even at my age, and after 35 years of first part of my life exploring worldly things heavily, the last 35 years looking into the higher aspect sort of realm more carefully. I still have a little lapse every now and again. My voice can get a little bit raised. Might sound a bit terse or tense or something like that. But 10 years ago, there were bigger sort of examples, and 15 years ago, 20 years ago, even more. So no, it's all part again, like people practicing sport. They want to, win gold medals at Olympics. So you've got 4 years before you go from one Olympic to the next. And you're at your peak. You've missed out on the medals in the first one, but you came second or third or something. So that inspired you, and you say, I'm going to train harder and all the rest of it. And then as you train harder during that next year or two, you start having medical issues, physical problems, tear your hamstrings or hurt your knee or something like that. And so you get a setback, and you feel despondent, and then, it's only 12 months to go before, the Olympics. And I hope, my knee or elbow or whatever it is clears up. So that's just on that physical level. In this work, it's exactly the same. So again, I'm glad you raised it, and I want to stress it. Don't be disillusioned, everyone. Don't be thinking, I've been watching all these podcasts and I've been practicing all the things he tells me to do, but I haven't had an experience. Well, there's no rule. There's no thing that says when you've done this and that, you'll have an experience. The emphasis is on just keep doing what you're doing. Keep working at it as diligently as you can, and live your life as well, and just keep going. Another beautiful aspect in the Upanishads, Jacqui, and it's in the front cover of a 2-volume one I've got, where it refers to 8 of them, 4 in one and 4 in the other. The Upanishads are beautiful stories, and they're dealing with the esoteric, the highest, the consciousness itself, and the student. It's always a student going to the guru to get information, how they can make that connection. And it says in the Upanishads, covering them all these beautiful stories, he says, the journey's long and arduous, this spiritual journey that we're all on. And referring exactly to what you've just asked, Jacqui, or the comment you've made. The journey's long and perilous. It's like walking on a razor edge. Now, just picture it. If you see people on work tight ropes over the tops of high buildings and stuff, and one slip and you're gone. Well, razor edge. Razors are sharp, aren't they? You slip off that razor and you can slice yourself up pretty bad. That's where you fall back, and that's where you have a hiccup in life and you forget about it, and you've got to bandage yourself up and get yourself organised. But it says, pick yourself up, press on, keep going until the goal is reached. So they're clearly saying what you've asked about. You'll have hiccups. You'll stumble. You'll fall off the perch. It could even be for 5, 10 years. because, I've got to, I mentioned there's a young lady in one of my groups, early 30s. She's madly in love and, going down the path that a lot of people at that age that are madly in love go down. No mention yet, and I don't want to put thoughts in hers or anyone else's mind, but could be babies and stuff like that. And then there's motherhood, and she's juggling or working on a career and that. So that person could I'm not saying she will, but a lot of people have just get caught up for that 10, 20-year period while they're in that phase of life. And as a parent or an adult, you've got to play your role. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm on the spiritual journey. Nick off, little baby. I'm too busy." So that'd be crazy. So, but the emphasis for everyone, Jacqui, is doesn't matter if you have a hiccup. They're natural. Fall back, fall over, stumble, lose focus for a while, 6 weeks, 3 months, a couple of years. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What does matter is that you remember again and you continue on. All right? I think that should reassure everyone.
I think it does, amply so.
Okay. And so now, mindful of the time, Jacqui, and I'm nearly finished, but don't want to leave it without touching on the whys.
Yes.
I've put a lot of emphasis on the deluded. So Krishna now describes the opposite types of humans. Those seeking true knowledge, wisdom, devotion to seek the self. Firstly, he refers to the great masters. These are people who have completed their journey and become realized. Just one line. He says, the realized beings who through constant devotion and love for him have finally found him. So out of the wise, that's the top echelon, if you like. Okay. And then there's the second layer of wise, which includes us. And it's only second in the sense of that we haven't gone the full distance. So secondly, he now describes the other great souls, people like us, Jacqui and listeners. It's a lovely understanding. Describes other great souls, and simply meaning people who have woken up and started on their journey. So those people you mentioned that are early days, hey, you're all included. You're all included, and then including us and anyone that's put a lot of effort in over a number of lifetimes and is getting pretty close now. And each the individuals will know who I'm referring to or where they place themselves in that. So he goes on to describe people like us. He says people who are on their spiritual journey, who are more and more seeking new knowledge, more and more putting it into practice in their daily lives, more and more becoming firmer in their desire for the self, and with a deepening devotion and love of the Lord as they learn more about him. Such wise beings will continue to strive all their lives until they finally realize the self. So I'll simply ask you, Jacqui, on behalf of the listeners, can you see that you fit into those sort of categories? You're seeking more new knowledge, you're putting it into practice, you know that there's a goal of self-realization to some extent or other, and that's where you want to go and that's where you feel you're going?
To a large degree, yes. But I have to say, over the years, two things come to mind. One, in sort of yoga land, because I've been a yoga teacher and I've known and mixed with a lot of yoga teachers, I have to say, I do see a lot of people really sort of striving forward with this goal of self-realization strongly in mind. Sometimes that's very altruistic and it's beautiful to see. I have to say, I have occasionally come across people that have become a little self-centered and self-obsessed in their journey of that. So again, it's not a critique, it's just an observation. I have to say, for me personally, and this is where you and I might differ a little in our ways forward, I'm aware of that, and I know it's part of my human potential, and I know I'm moving in that direction, but I don't kind of hold that as like it's not like a lamppost I'm consciously moving toward every day. For me personally, I put the emphasis on just self-growth, care for who's around me in a compassionate, tolerant kind of way, like sharing, the interchange. I'm just constantly trying to be the best version of myself and/or a better version of myself, and kind of being really encouraging and supportive of everyone else around me. So in a way, it's like there's this loose goal forward, but I personally don't attach too much. Like, it's not like I'm like, right, self-realization, anything I can do to get me closer to that. That's not really how I apply my mental focus. I'm just trying to gradually grow and take care of the spiritual parts of myself and the bits I can influence around me. And I trust that that process is going to navigate itself. So I know that's partly what you're saying, but I just feel to share my experience, because I have a feeling for some people who are listening, that lofty goal, I'm pretty sure, is going to feel too far away, and/or people aren't going to feel passionate enough because maybe the knowledge or experience isn't enough yet if they're new to it, that they're not convinced that they want to apply all their focus to that. So I just feel to share some of my own personal journey, because I have a feeling people are going to relate to it in different ways that might be useful. So not to say that, 100% that's the goal I'm going is wrong. It's just personally not what I'm doing in my life. And probably because I still have children who live at home. I still have a, full-time job. I still have a lot of things that keep me attached to worldly affairs. So
Yes. Yeah.
There's my thoughts on that for this present moment.
Have we got a couple of hours to for me to make any comments?
We're going to give you a couple of minutes.
Don't be perturbed, Jacqui. Anyone listening and falls into Jacqui's description there, don't be perturbed. It's a natural part of the process. I've been there myself, been there, done that, so nothing. We've talked in nearly every podcast, Jacqui, about this teaching having two aspects. One is that any human being studying this Gita, the teachings in it, will gradually improve their quality of life. They'll become less stressed, more settled in themselves. They'll watch the mind. They'll try not to get too emotional, guard the senses, all of those sorts of things. That's not all that hard for people to understand, and you just gradually start practice. We also talk about that there's only very few people that are at that near the end of the journey where they're the rest of sort of life has gone past them, and the focus solely is on that last union with the self. So along the journey, there's 8 billion people I showed on one of my diagrams, the consciousness diagram, and everyone's slotted in there. So you can't do anything about where you are. It is who you are and what you've done and what you understand and what you aspire to. So none of it's right or wrong. It's just what it is. So what you're describing is, I'd imagine, for most people who are listening, Jacqui, straddling what's called both worlds, mortal world, and 1 foot in the mortal world and 1 foot in the immortal world. And you've got to keep doing that. You can't just, some people could. You just say, well, I'm off, I'm out of here. Just goodbye, everyone. I'm off to the Himalayas. I'm going to find a cave up there and hopefully a guru and, do that. Well, I said once before, there aren't 8 billion caves on the planet. And Krishna says to us, to Arjuna at the start, you must act in this world as husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, people in the community, everything. But he says act from service. Try and help as well as yourself, other people. Don't be selfish, selfless actions to better yourself, to better the universe, better everyone you come in contact with. So that's all part of the deal. Just keep doing that, Jacqui. I would put to you, though, that in the next 20 podcasts, you will have sharpened up that lamppost that you sort of sees a long way down. You'll maybe realise it's not as far down as you're sort of thinking at the moment. But it won't matter whether you do or you don't. just keep doing what you're doing. Everyone, folk, just keep trying to be a better person, a better human being, kinder, more tolerant, more loving, more gentle, more everything. I had a gentleman that came to the sessions for about 15 years, Jackie, and he used to say, I don't want to know about karma. I don't believe it. I don't want to know about life cycles. I just think I've got this one life. But what I like coming here for is because I'm hearing stuff because I just want to be a better human being. And I'd say to him, well, I don't care whether you like, I'm not worried about, not I don't care. I'm not worried if you don't like karma or that. That doesn't worry me. That's good. But what I'm happy about is that you're getting something out of this and you want to be a better human being. And I said to him, I congratulated him on any number of occasions. I said, if every person on the planet had that same strong emphasis that you've got, that they just want to be a better human being, this would be a different world, Jackie, and a different world, folks. A lot of people don't want to be a better person. A lot of people actually want to be a worse person. So just that alone is wonderful news that you want to keep improving yourself and living life and, interacting with people better and more gently and all of these and sharing some of your knowledge and helping people, teaching them yoga. These are all part of the journey. It's all beautiful. It's all relevant. So there's no fear there, Jackie. None for you and none for any of the listeners. I'm just giving a picture to cover everyone. Yeah, I know that most of our audience ties in with what you're saying, but I also know there's probably a few, and I sort of feel I'm in that category where I sort of feel that lamppost is sort of almost within touching distance, having sort of worked through those other aspects. So at 80, I don't have children. You're not living at home with me anymore. I'm just by myself. All my life, all my work basically is
Well,
centered
hang on. You share your home with your wife, my mother.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
No. But we have a common interest in the teaching. She runs groups and I run
Yes,
groups.
yes.
So my life basically centers around teaching people. And now we're doing these podcasts that I never thought at the start of the year I'd be doing. So it's like another group and another opportunity to pass on this beautiful knowledge. Um, and um, but I'm less and less interested in what I used to chase. You know how I used to chase money and business and wanting a nice house and 12 acres and all of those sorts of things. Well, I got all those, and then in the end, they didn't mean to me as much as I thought they would. I loved it, and it was all beautiful. Got no regrets, but there was an emptiness within me. And what I've been doing the last 35 years is filling that emptiness. And I love it and I want to keep filling it more and so on. So I'll just finish off now, Jackie, with this
Yes,
last little
let's
bit.
wrap up and you better give us our
Yeah,
homework task for the week.
yeah, we've given it a bit of a shake lengthwise.
That's
So anyway,
okay.
to sum it all up, and this only takes 3 minutes, but I'd like to finish it because it finishes on some nice examples of Krishna elaborating to Arjuna and to us the qualities of what or who he is. So I say to sum it all up and conclude this podcast, Krishna describes the self's manifestations in the world as the one divinity, being everything, pervading the infinite range of beings and things everywhere. So it's infinite, it's the cause of everything, it's behind everything, and pervades all of the infinite range of beings and things. So consciousness is new. It's in me. It's in all of our listeners. It's in all 8 billion people. It's in a grain of sand. It's in the worm. It's in the eagle soaring in the sky, in the whale going through the ocean. It's in the sun, in the moon, the stars, black holes, gravity, everything. Consciousness is in there to some extent or other. And all of those things can't operate unless consciousness is behind it all and there. And when consciousness withdraws from the creation, well, then all of those manifestations that we understand, ourselves included, the world, planet Earth, the sun, stars, sky, atmosphere, space, everything disappears and there's just consciousness. And that's what I referred to a podcast or two ago. That's called the night, the day and night of God. So when there's no creation, it's like it's nighttime, he's having a little rest. And then when you wake up the next day, or the creator wakes up also and puts out a new creation. It unfolds. And so the few little brief examples that he gives to illustrate this is that he says, and this is in the actual Gita, Jacqui, anyone can look it up. He says, I'm the father of the universe and its mother. I'm its nourisher and its grandfather. I'm Om, and I'm the sacred scriptures. So this work we're doing, the studying the Gita, that's consciousness. Yeah, you chant Om with your groups and whatever. That's consciousness. It's the sound of the creation. He says, I'm the life and death. I'm goal. I'm the goal. I'm the witness, and I'm the sustainer. I'm the home and the shelter and the refuge at the end of the paths of everyone. All paths. That's where you're going to end up. Doesn't matter how long you take. It takes many lifetimes. Not even just this lifetime, Jacqui, many lifetimes. He says, I'm the heat of the sun. I'll release and hold back the rain. Yeah, humans think that they're in charge of the heating or whatever of the planet, or whether there's droughts or floods or something, making it very clear. I control weather and climate and all the changes that take place. And he says, and I am both being and non-being. It's a hard one to get your head around, but you can't get your head around it. You've just got to eventually know it from within. And he says, apart from me, Arjuna, there is absolutely no object, no thought, no act. Apart from me, unless there's me there, no thought, no object, no act. So me talking, I can't talk unless there's consciousness. You hearing, you can't hear unless there's consciousness. People think that the lips and the tongue talk, and they think their ears listen. Well, they're the mechanism for it. But when you're dead, you've still got ears and you've still got a mouth and tongue, but you can't talk and you can't hear. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay,
All pervading is just the word that's resonating all around me.
What's that?
All pervading.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. It's all pervading. Everything, everywhere, at all times. And I've referred to those three words in detail a while back: omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. And so the exercise for the week, Jacqui, for the listeners and yourself, and you've already done it, so you don't have to do it this week, is I want you to peel bananas. Everyone, go and get a banana and peel it gently and look at it and observe it, and then taste the banana. Oh, yeah. But I want you to do a bit more than that. I want you to exercise all five senses. Yeah. I'd like you to continue observing throughout every day that whatever you are hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, or smelling has its origin in the Supreme Brahman. Well, that's what you described so beautifully and excitedly earlier on, didn't you, Jacqui? You and your friends left home, you're excited that it's a new life, a new beginning, you're going to university, you go to the market, and there you go, you pick out whatever it is you want, and you sit down and you're trying to smash a coconut. Well, behind that, why you got so excited is you're already touching in on this homework, on this exercise. You somehow felt or knew, and as I mentioned to you with your meditation, that's because in previous lifetimes you've been doing this work and you already had done exercises like this by your previous teacher or guru who said to you, I want you to look carefully all through the day, everything you smell, touch, see. So it's all around you, folk, everywhere, constantly during the day. So whatever you're seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, don't just do that. But as you're doing it, if you're aware that there's this consciousness, this powerful entity behind it all, that's given it to you and it's there for your enjoyment, it'll increase the gratitude in you, in everyone, and you will not only appreciate it, but you will understand fully the whole cycle of everything in the creation, and your gratitude for how perfect and pure and complete it all is, and available to every human being on the planet if they choose to look for it. All right, Jacqui, I'm done. We've
I'm
gone
done too. We've
gone
gone way over time, but
about
that's okay.
20
We've
minutes over.
had some good conversations. People will have to do part 1 and part 2 of just this episode. Never mind when we get part 2 of the chapter next week.
Forgive me, listeners, but it was Jacqui's fault.
Goodbye, everybody. Lovely to connect, and we will see you next week.
Farewell, everyone.